cháu ơi kịch côn cúng cùng nịch rèn xác luôn pràn cùng ăn sang bon lom lon chọn bàn bom piên bùm thưa đôi thon thò mà đá chỉ mà nung ai đắng quặp không bon bát ai squal vậy mình chẳng bán chẳng miên ông cal ai bán đôi thô nụ tơm dơn dung ba nâng khom lô phố vì đom son xóm chẳng trồn trong nền trộm nung nơi bóng bò đi bò.
We were trying to think of an exciting title for this exhibition, and in the end we came up with Cambodia. And two dates, 28th of November 1972 to the 7th of April 1975. So we had two bookends. Actually, it's three exhibitions together, and the themes are quite diverse. So we wondered how we could put it together as one exhibition. The only unifying theme is the fact that it's all in Cambodia, and it's all between those two dates. And it's a little bit of a strange title because Cambodia for me was basically just Phnom Penh at that time, because I couldn't go out into the countryside very far. The Khmer Rouges were controlling most of the country. So what we did was we brought all the photographs in and we unpacked them, laid them out on the floor and saw what kind of pattern they fell into. And naturally enough, it started off with the first day. And my first day in Cambodia was the 29th of November. I arrived from Bangkok via a bus and an old Peugeot 505 taxi packed with people in Sisapon, and it was after dark, it was night time. I was very tired, and there were lots of people crowding around me. I was the only foreigner in Sisapon, I think, and all these people were standing around asking me questions, telling me the history of Cambodia, all about the culture of Cambodia, the politics of Cambodia, and it was very tiring, especially as I was very tired to start off with. And I remember we were speaking in French. There were some people spoke French, and I remember pushing the door of the hotel shut to keep everyone out and say, sorry, I got to get some sleep. And the next morning, I met Mr. Big Smile here, and he had a motorcycle, and I had an idea of going to Bante Chamar. Bante Chamar is a big temple north of Sisapon, and it was accessible, which Angkor Wat was not at that time, because the Khmer Rouges were already occupying Angkor Wat. So he said yes, and we got on his motorbike and we went up this really bad road. It took almost between 5 and 6 hours, and it's only 60 kilometers along the road to reach Bante Chamar. On the way, we met these gentlemen, and they said, or the officer with the sunglasses, Mr. Kim Hong, he said, well, you can't really go much further. It might be dangerous. So I said, well, I have to go because I'm an archaeologist and I'm on a mission. And I produced a book by Monsieur Cedez. It's the Guide to Angkor. And I said, this is my uncle. He wrote the book, and it's very important that I go to Bante Chima. So he said, well, okay, but we'll have to go with you. And so it was that I went to Bante Chima with all these boys. The exception is the guardian here. He was the guardian of Bante Chima. Looked very much like an elderly Bob Marley, maybe Bob Marley's grandpa. And so we walked into Bante Chima. Yeah, when we arrived at Bante Chima, there was quite an impressive building, but I thought, is that all? And then he said, that's the gate. So we went in, and it was overgrown with jungle. At that time, it hadn't been cleared at all. And out of the jungle, I saw these huge faces, like the faces at the Bayon, appearing through the leaves. And it was a fantastic experience. And then we walked, we had to climb over all the rocks and all the masonry in the temple, and came across this beautiful Avalokiteshvara, the god of compassion, with many, many arms. And this was particularly interesting because it's the beginning of the story of the Ramayana. Valmiki is being told by Brahma that he should write the story of the Ramayana. The hunter had just shot 2 Saras cranes, and Valmiki was weeping because he was very sensitive. Brahma said, you are sensitive enough to write the Ramayana. And so he did. When we went back a few years ago, we found that Valmiki's head has gone, and the hunter's head has gone, and some of the other carvings were in the same condition. They've been taken by looters over the period of 50 years. And the Avalokiteshvara, also the top of it's gone. This has been taken off, and that entire wall had disappeared. Some of it was recovered, and now it's in the National Museum. I don't know which parts. So this trip to Bante Chima was very useful to make a record of what was still intact at that time. When I was in Phnom Penh the first time, I met 2 Americans, and they were starting a school. So I'd been very impressed in Sisapon by all the energetic people who were talking. I thought Cambodians are crazy. They're so noisy and talk a lot and full of energy. And I'd come from Laos, where people are very quiet, gentle, laid back, and it was a big contrast to be in Cambodia with people so full of energy. So I thought, yeah, I'd like to stay here. And so I decided to come back early the next year and teach at the school. So I was not a photographer, I was a teacher with a camera. And the school was called ETAP, and it had 800 students at its peak, and even opened a branch in Battambang, which lasted 6 months. Students were from, those students were from Lycée Sitawat, but some of them were also ETAP students. The old man with the broom had beautiful gardening boots, and his t-shirt says Judo Karate. The photograph at the bottom is a student of mine who still lives outside Phnom Penh. He's got white hair now, and he took a photo of me with my camera. The photographs in this section are all in Phnom Penh, and most of them were probably taken in 1973 because I had a bicycle. And with the bicycle I couldn't get around very far, so I took a lot of photographs in the city. Later on I got a motorcycle, and then I could go out into the countryside, but that was later. The river, this is the, not the Mekong River, actually, it's the Tonle Sap River. And very far in the distance is the Japan Bridge, which had recently been destroyed. There's a scene at the bottom here. I would throw this photograph out normally because it's out of focus. There's nothing in focus here, but it's the only photograph of the riverside that I have. And lots of people out there with, snacks and ice cream. And this, I remember this happening when Lon Nol Air Force bombers were bombing the other side of the river because they said that there were Khmer Rouges on the other side of the river. So they were dropping bombs and strafing along the river on the other side. And people were watching. It was a spectacle with their snacks and ice cream. Very strange situation. Probably the Khmer Rouges were not actually there. I think it was a propaganda stunt. Yeah, and by the riverside, this is the other side of the river is the Mekong. So this is the widest part of the river from in front of the palace. Musicians are still there in front of the palace. The statue has gone long ago. It's been replaced by another statue, and then another, and maybe there's nothing there now. But it was in front of Wat Unalom. This street is now Sihanouk Boulevard, but it was renamed at this time as Avenue 18 Mars 1970, which is 18th of March 1970. That was the date of the coup, and you can actually, you can see the sign here. This is the Psa Gabgo, cattle slaughter market. You don't see any cattle being slaughtered in there, it's just the name. But it's still there. In outside Wat Unalom, an old man was sitting, waiting for a haircut. Doesn't really look like he needs a haircut. I liked his shoes, neatly displayed under the bench. And then in the market, some cheeky kids and a duck. The lady in the background was selling lottery tickets. This is the market, Sargabgo. There was plenty of food still in the market, and this is 1973, so not much shortage of food. Over the road from the school, happy ladies with great piles of vegetables. And this picture has the car, and it has the lady with the very typical sampot of that time, very typical Cambodian skirt. You can still see old guys like this fixing bicycle tires now. Two lots of musicians here. The ones at the bottom are classical pinpiat musicians by the riverside, and the ones above were wounded soldiers. One of them was blind, and they were playing also by the riverside, collecting money in a shell case from a big gun, 105mm howitzer. And above, there was lots of barbed wire in Phnom Penh. But now the barbed wire is around people's houses. At that time, I don't remember much barbed wire around people's houses. And when I went out, I didn't lock my door either. Strange. Things have changed a lot in that sense. Anyway, this barbed wire was because of the 1972 attack in which a North Vietnamese commando troop blew up the bridge behind them, came into the town, occupied the French embassy, commandeered some armoured personnel carriers from the military depot, and rode around town, and there was a running battle between the French embassy and Wat Phnom, the centre of the town. They were all killed or captured in the end, but the fact that the war came into Phnom Penh for the first time was a big shock. Before that, it was something that was happening out in the countryside. People didn't see it, but when that happened, it changed the whole atmosphere. But even so, people went on with their lives without worrying about that, because there's no point in worrying. This is on Monivong, one of the main boulevards of Phnom Penh, and I took 3 or 4 photographs in this case, which was rare, because this kid was so entertaining. He was mimicking me, and this is a vertical photograph, so I was holding the camera like this, and he was mimicking me. At the end of Street 294, there was a Van Mollivan building, or not Van Mollivan, but part of the Van Mollivan complex. We called it the White Building, and it was only recently demolished. Lots of cyclo drivers in Phnom Penh. There were tuk-tuks, but I don't think I ever used a tuk-tuk. It was either my bicycle or it was a cyclo. A lot of cyclo drivers were students, teachers, even government workers. This lady has been quite popular in the exhibition. Everyone notices her. But maybe without the caption, they wouldn't notice that she's a dentist. In fact, I didn't notice she was a dentist at the time I took the picture. I was focusing on her, And I loved the way that she was lying like this, and I didn't want to wake her up, so that was my focus. I didn't notice what was in the case or this contraption here, but much later on, I was looking at it, I thought, is she selling cigarettes? No. And then someone said, teeth, it's teeth. There are teeth in here. And then I saw the drill. This is a manual drill. And you stick the end in your mouth, or she sticks the end in your mouth and turns the handle. And when your tooth is taken out, you can choose a new one from here. She didn't wake up, luckily. And these ice shaving machines you can still see in Phnom Penh. I think it may be the same ones. They probably last forever. Very sturdy machine. In this picture is one of the 2 flies in the exhibition. The fly is on the woman's arm. This could provide a sort of a quiz for the kids. Find the 2 flies in the exhibition. And, well, at least one kid found both of them very easily. There's an interesting thing about it as well is that the fly was just there for probably a couple of seconds. And now it's in the photograph forever. That's what photographs do, preserve a moment in time. And what comes before and what happens afterwards is something different. This photo we chose for the poster of the exhibition because it's got everything of the atmosphere of Phnom Penh at that time. And the old gentleman is magnificent. And the fresh breeze is just blowing his shirt. You can almost feel it. And cyclo drivers, and in the distance a white Mercedes-Benz. That was the status symbol at that time, before the Lexus. The Grand Hotel Manolis. It's still there, but you wouldn't recognize it because the arches now have become a karaoke TV place. It's all colored glass and lights. Absolutely horrible. But it's the building, it's a beautiful old building. Famous thing about this building is that André Malraux, the famous French writer, who later became the Minister of Culture in France, when he was a young man, he came to Cambodia with the intention of stealing sculptures from the temples and taking them back, selling them, and getting rich. Anyway, he stole some sculptures from Preah Srey, one of the most beautiful temples at Angkor, brought them back to Phnom Penh, and he was caught. He was arrested, and Georges Grolier, who was a great protector of Cambodian culture, he had him under hotel arrest in the Grand Hotel Manolis for 3 or 4 months. Although it was called the Grand Hotel, it wasn't very comfortable apparently, so it was almost like a prison. These 2 photographs are all in the same street, which I don't know where it is now. It's called Hemtief Street, named after a hero of the resistance against the French, who was imprisoned in the 1930s. He was a monk. So, as he's a national hero from the colonial period, he was a national hero for every regime, the Lon Nol regime, even the Khmer Rouges regime, and all the regimes that came afterwards. But I don't think the street is still there, or it changed places a few times. That's the school office, apparently, and that's why all the kids are outside. And at that time, you could go and take photographs of kids in the street, and you wouldn't be arrested as a paedophile, and the kids wouldn't all go like that. So if they'd been doing that, I wouldn't have been interested in taking photographs of them, but they didn't. You know, they just reacted naturally, and they were beautiful and full of fun. I wonder where they are now. And then, yeah, this photograph speaks for itself. When she saw me, she didn't know, she for a moment she was frozen. And then the next reaction was panic. Now this street, I was told yesterday, this street may be round the back of Wat Phnom, so I'm going to go and have a look. It may still be recognizable. I liked these pictures because they had so much in them. They had the Siklo and the government worker in the Siklo, the civil servant, and the police and the military here, and the lady in the fashionable pants. It's probably a bar. And the old man pulling something up on a rope. Maybe it's his lunch, noodles for lunch. The next picture shows two ETAP teachers. This is Stephen Hedder. He's now a Cambodia specialist, researcher, and he speaks fluent Khmer. And his wife. And they were living in a house in the southwest part of Phnom Penh, which was heavily bombarded in the dry season of 1974. Yeah, so this photo was taken 1974, not 73. And we were digging a hole under the house because the shells were coming closer and closer. Luckily, they didn't need it, but we dug a hole for them. Around Wat Phnom, there was Khmer Rouges, one of the ethnic minority people from the eastern side of Cambodia, probably, selling medicine and magic charms to protect you from enemy bullets. So day-to-day life was, as you can see, it was quite peaceful. It seemed quite peaceful, and people were smiling, and as usual. And there were, of course, some rockets coming into the city, but not so many, and they were in certain areas, like near the American Embassy and near Lon Nol's house, places like that. But some of them landed in the markets or near places where there were a lot of people. And on several occasions, some landed near my house, which was conveniently placed between the river and the American Embassy. So if they fell short, they came down somewhere around my place. And this shows a bit of rocket damage. A rocket exploded in the temple, next to the temple. and people came out to see what had happened. I went on vacation for a week in the last week of 1973. I went to Khmer Rouges. Khmer was an uninhabited island. There was no one living on it. It was a sort of a little paradise island off the coast of Cambodia. We stayed there a week camping, and when I came back, the landscape had completely changed. These were all houses in here, and there had been a fire, they'd burned down, and it had been cleared in the space of time that we were away. And the local kids were out playing in the ruins. I don't know, but maybe some of them had lost their houses. But again, they don't look very unhappy, do they? More people, kids. He's wearing a key here. It's something like a talisman. It's to protect him from evil spirits. Yeah, a bulldozer clearing away the rubble. And another favourite photograph of mine and some other people is the girl on a bicycle. This was the first photo I took of her. I usually only took one photograph because of the scarcity of film. I tried to make every shot count. But in this case, I took 2 photos because I could see in the first one that she was special. And then the second photo, rubbish, because she looked down. There was not that eye contact anymore. The first photo was the one, not the second. And you like this one, don't you, Keiko? With the father and the kid. Some pretty girls. And she is in Bristol now. She married a friend of mine working for the British Council in Phnom Penh, and they left before the Khmer Rouges arrived. So they're both living in Bristol, England. Her friend just happened to be there at that time, but I think I only met her once or twice, and I know nothing about her. And by the way, there's the other fly. These two girls, one was named Ani and one was Ati. The one of Ati was taken by candlelight, and I took about four photos of her. The first one, she's trying to read a newspaper by candlelight, which I thought was very brave of her. It was very difficult. It was candlelight because there was an electricity blackout. It was quite near, this was actually 1975, I think. Yeah, because I was in my last apartment, which was in the tallest building in Phnom Penh. It was the 6th floor, the highest building in Phnom Penh. Well, there were no higher buildings. And there was a blackout, the lights went out, and by candlelight she was trying to read, I think it was an issue of Nokor Tom, Sok Paulin's newspaper. And the other girl, she was very sweet, and I heard that one of her friends came out of Cambodia to the refugee camps in 1980 and said that she had died during the Khmer Rouges.